The Biden administration continues to stumble on the world stage, this time sending diplomats to Communist China yesterday on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. No doubt accustomed to the feckless leadership of this administration, the Chinese Communist Party continues to flex its muscles, dispatching a shift to provocatively cross the path of a U.S. destroyer in the Taiwan Straits, as well as attempting to infiltrate Alaskan military bases with spies posing as tourists. Does this mark the beginning of a Cold War between China and the U.S.? Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Tim Burchett. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability and the Committee on Foreign Affairs in the House. He represents the 2nd Congressional District of Tennessee. Congressman, welcome back to the program. Always great to see you.
Always good to be on with you, Tony, and thank you for being a light in a vast darkness of media.
Well, I appreciate that, and we want to help give those of you who are shining lights on these issues on Capitol Hill the opportunity to do so for the American public. Look, it seems like it's one error after another, or maybe it's an intentional misstep, where this administration seems to be emboldening Xi Jinping and the Communist Party of China.
Well, they've invested close to $10 million in the Biden family for whatever product they're producing. And to me, it looks like access to this White House. You know, you mentioned it in your opening statement there, you know, our great idea of having a meeting on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. I mean, if we were going to go over there and spank them real good, that might be one thing, but it's obviously we're not. You know, they own 384,000 acres of U.S. farmland. They have basically ran a police force out of New York City. And it just goes on and on. The FBI opens a new espionage investigation against Communist China every 12 hours. This thing is out of control, Tony, and we have got to get control of it. And the FBI needs to step up or get out of the way. And I feel like the only way we're going to get to them is through their checkbook. Jim Jordan talked about it a few weeks back. I think we need to start going after some of these departments.
I want to play a clip from John Kirby, the coordinator for strategic communications at the National Security Council today, was asked about the U.S. sending diplomats to China on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Play clip number 4, please.
We would not call it a misstep. I mean, this was a long-planned trip, and this is the way the schedule's worked out. But I think, honestly, people will be criticizing the timing of Tiananmen Square, just making a whole heck of a lot out of nothing.
Seems like the Tiananmen Square happened before they planned their trip to China.
Well, it also seems like this is an administration that's steeped in symbols and signals, and then all of a sudden, one of the most courageous events that happened and one of the most brutal events that's happened in the last few decades, Tiananmen Square. Everybody knows it. You say Tiananmen Square, and what do you think of? You think of that one brave man who nobody knows who he is and whatever happened to him that stood in front of that tank.
Right, I remember
in
that.
Tiananmen Square. You know, it was a massacre. They massacred freedom-loving people, and here we are. We're almost celebrating it. This administration has once again shown it has no moral compass whatsoever, and frankly, it's disgusting. I mean, it just goes. When does it all end? When does it all end? And what keeps this just keep? You think, how can they blunder any further?
Right.
And once again, you've got the Communist Chinese who no longer fear us as they did under the Trump administration, but now they're just reckless with their towards our warships and our airplanes. These two. That's all they do is play chess with us, and we're playing checkers and we're getting whipped just with that, like that balloon. It wasn't so much the information they gathered, Tony, as I've heard you allude to in the past. It was the idea that they could fly that thing over our great country and no one did anything about it, and that's what I think that they judged.
Congressman, I want to ask you about this. You serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
Yes, sir.
When you look at, as you just talked about, the Chinese Navy, Air Force becoming more aggressive, this is very dangerous. Our weakness, this is my take, correct me if I'm wrong, our weakness is inviting their aggression, and at some point an accident could occur with this type of provocative behavior. What happens then?
Probably we apologize somehow. I mean, honestly, this group in the White House is so irresponsible. You know, I believe what's happening now in our White House, you've got a bunch of young people, probably 30 and below, that have this president's ear, that have no idea of the history, the brutal nature of the Chinese communists, how they treat people, how they treated our Christian missionaries, for goodness sakes. You're showing right there, they flew right in our airspace, right over, right in the direction of one of our planes. They're doing that right there with the boat. They're basically thumbing their nose at the United States of America because they know we'll not respond. And that's when they're going to move on Taiwan. They'll move on Taiwan, and I'm sure our leadership will write them a stern letter, and all of Congress will be up and roar. But we won't have anything to do anything with, and we won't do anything. And that'll be the bottom line, and they realize that.
And the rest of the world will be watching.
Absolutely. And then you'll see our enemies move on us that much more, and our friends will run for cover, because the United States will not be the great nation that it once was. And we're allowed. And here again, Tony, I blame myself and as much as this, but the reason this outfit's in power is because 20 million so-called evangelical Christians decided to not go to the polls from top to bottom. And that's where it's got to change.
Yeah.
We got to put so many points on the board, they can't steal it from us.
Well said. I agree 100%. Switching topics very quickly, just got about a minute and a half left. I plan to get into this a little bit later in the program in more depth, but you serve also on the House Oversight and Accountability Committee. Chairman Comer reviewed the document today on the Biden family's corruption, that investigation that the FBI has withheld. Chairman Comer held a press conference today after reviewing the documents. What have we learned?
Well, we've learned that there's a whistleblower and an informant, and they don't really care about the whistleblower, but they're trying to protect the informant. And as in true FBI form, they will say, if we're investigating it, we can't comment on it. Now, what I'm afraid they'll do is run out the clock, because, again, I have a very large distrust for the administration of our FBI, not the rank and file agents, of course, but the ones that operate out of this town. The higher ups have had a history of dishonesty, I believe. And then if we call, again, we got to go for their checkbook, Tony, pure and simple. That's our power. Power of the purse is what the House has. We'll call on them to investigate, and they'll have their own people investigate it. It's very predictable, and they'll drag it out. They'll run the clock out, and America will be on to the next presidency or the next White House, and nobody will be talking about it. We need to get to this. We need to get to it in a hurry.
Yeah, you're right. And keeping that at the forefront, it is the purse. It is the checkbook. The Congress controls that. And that's, quite frankly, that's all they control. Tim, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you, Tony. You're a blessing to me and this country. Thank you. I hope you stay on the air a long time, brother.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate that.